Hey everyone, Sean and Dave here from Saturday Morning Cartoons. We cannot start this week's show, absolutely cannot start this week's show, until we thank the following people who went to patreon.com to sponsor this show.
Derek Haynes,
Alex Kazanis,
Jack Connolly,
Jonathan Renteria Elye,
Bill Dixon,
the wonderful Melanie Harker,
Dr. Jason Woods,
oh, the fantastic Allison Keene,
the alright Jamal Newman,
the so-so John Helter,
Battle Mat Fitness,
the wonderful David Trumbore,
and the one and only Sean Paul Ellis. Hey, out there, if you guys want to be on this list or just want to know what's coming up next week on the show, check out patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons for more details. And remember, that's morning with a U.
Thank you so much for sponsoring us. Thank you so much for listening. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from Chuckamation Studios, I'll be your co-host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, he's super funny and super naked. It's Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, bud?
David, I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
You know, I've known you for a while, so I'm comfortable with what's going on here, but I'm going to say strong choice of wardrobe today. Strong choice.
I don't know if everybody understands this, but we podcast from different areas of the country together in the safety and the comfort of our own space. Mm-hmm. And if I want to do a little bit nude, I can. And it's not offending. Dave's only really kind of staring at my bust.
Yeah, I'm literally the only person offended by this right now. Like visually offended by it.
Yeah, very sorry about that. It's not like I'm going to stand up anytime soon and the webcam's going to catch everything.
Please don't. It's weird that you referred to it as the bust. I guess it's still... Oh, did you hear that shift, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, that was me in a chair.
That was an aggressive shift.
Yeah, some things got exposed. You're not upset about it. It's okay, you're not recording. You're fine.
Yikes. What does this have to do with Nicktoons?
It has nothing to do with Nicktoons.
Oh, nothing to do.
Other than the fact that we're referencing a very specific character that we've talked about previously on another episode. And we have a chance to kind of jump in and delve a little bit deeper into these characters. We are, of course, talking about Action League now.
Ba-ba-da-bow.
Yep.
Yeah, what's funny is actually this Nicktoons New Year's, we're kind of jumping around a little bit. It turns out that we've kind of hop, skipped, jumped. We've covered some Nicktoons previously before we had the idea to hey, maybe do them all together at once. So if you're following along at home, we're going to be a little all over the place this month. You may find stuff like Chalk Zone already exists, and Rocket Power we've already done, and As Told by Ginger's already out there, and there's some other stuff that we're going to be getting to a little bit later. So hang in there with us. But if you didn't know that Action League Now was a series, and you thought it was just a bunch of shorts from Kablam, Sean's going to clarify the history of it right about now.
Guys, if you're not familiar with Action League Now, also known as Action League Now, the series, is an American stop-motion animated children's television series created by Rob Mittenthal, Will McRobb, and Albie Hecht that was originally part of All That and then Kablam on Nickelodeon. The spin-off show premiered on Nickelodeon in November 2001 and ended its run in February 2002. So, guys, not super long. But it was made using Chuckamation, and we will get into all about Chuckamation and our thoughts. It is a combination of stop-motion animation and live-action shots where things are simply thrown or chucked or dropped into frame or wiggled around to simulate them talking. Most episodes took place in a house of an unseen resident. Many of the characters were voiced by radio personalities from Pittsburgh. There have been numerous guest appearances, including national football player Brett Favre, John Elway, Cordell Stewart, Troy Aikman, and Bill Cower, the rock band Kiss, musician, actor Harry Connick Jr., pop singer Robin, and the musician Lou Rawls.
Let me ask you, which one of those is your favorite? Either your favorite guest appearance or just your favorite human being?
Oh, man. I can't say favorite guest appearance because I haven't seen all of the episodes for this show.
We saw a little bit. We saw a hint of the Kiss special.
We saw a hint of the Kiss. Yeah. I think Kiss would be a really fun guest to have, and they'd be really interesting. I'll be honest with you. Harry Connick Jr.'s voice is so specific. I think that
Is it
I want to be
iconic?
able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get there?
Yeah, it was rough.
You happy with yourself?
No,
I
I'm
love the
not.
fact that you're making the joke and you're just looking at yourself with a sneer, like, I wish I hadn't said that,
It's like
but you
it's
did.
like the pun tank in my brain is like, we got one, and the rest of it catches up, and it's just like, you're so fast, and I'm so disappointed in you and myself for not catching it sooner. It's unfortunate.
Guys, 2018, the year of the pun tank. This is not going well for
Pun
Dave so
tank.
far.
Fill it up.
If you can, tweet at Dave with your favorite
Please
puns
do, guys.
at Dr. Claw MD. Fill up that pun
Some
tank,
of your
everybody.
best puns. I will steal some of them.
We will cite
Yeah.
you if we put it.
I
It's
use
not
the
like-
term
we're not-
steal loosely. I will steal with
Yeah.
credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. I was surprised that you gave me a credit for the idea and the pun that I had. I was blown away, so thank you very much.
It was great. The best part of that pun, if you want to know what Sean's talking about, head on over to collider.com and look up Star Wars The Last Jedi fandom menace. That was Sean's expert pun, which led into a lot of hate and a lot of love on the internet. Weirdly, for things that I did not expect to get hate and or love for, but that's a whole nother story. All right, buddy. So now we know the history of Action League now. You want to know what it's actually about?
I mean, I'm assuming it's about the same cast of characters that we watched during Kablam, but take it away.
100%. The series follows the adventures of a superhero league composed of various action figures, toys, and dolls, namely The Flesh, Thunder Girl, Stinky Diver, Meltman, The Chief, and Justice the Dog. The Action League has had various villains throughout the show's run, including the Mayor, a gigantic baby simply named Big Baby, a Jack Russell Terrier called Spotzilla, a rival superhero league known as the Danger Society, a bald genius known as Smarty Pants, an enemy of Stinky's past called Red Ninja, a group of evil aliens, a gypsy who cursed the chief, yikes on that one, and a mummy brought to life by the mayor. Sometimes, due to their own collective stupidity, even the league themselves can be the main cause of a problem. We should have watched that gypsy episode.
Yeah, I wish we would watch that Gypsy episode. That sounds like a lot of fun. Is it like Thinner? Is it like Stephen King's Thinner?
It's got to be either like Thinner, probably not, or The Wolfman, probably something between the two.
Ooh, like American Werewolf in London?
Yeah, we could go with that. Yeah, sure. Probably not.
Okay.
Probably didn't start with a blowy in the car, like Thinner, I'm going to guess. Hey, guess what? This is not our family-friendly episode.
Oh, have we already ruined it this quickly into the
When you talk
episode?
about a blowy in a car, you've ruined the family experience.
Guys, 2018, we're 7 minutes in and we've already blown this.
Literally. So, we did not watch the Gypsy episode tonight. We did watch the first overall episode of the series itself, which is titled Action League Goes to the Movies. Now, what's interesting about this, and we'll talk about it more once we get to the plot, I was worried that Action League was going to lose what made it fun and special from the shorts in Kablam or all that, and it was going to try to stretch that idea out into like a full-on 30-minute plot or 22-minute plot or whatever you want to call it. Thankfully, I guess, this stayed as like little 5-6 minute chunks and segments.
Is this thankful?
That being said, it's still a lot.
Is this really thankful?
It's a lot to handle. It's a lot, you guys.
Yeah.
They're fine in like 5 or 6 minute chunks. 25 minutes of 5 or 6 minute chunks is still 25 minutes of this. So we'll talk about it. We'll get through it. We're going to support each other. It's going to be fine. Before that, let's talk about that theme song. Does this even qualify as a theme song?
I think it does. And I mean, it's the theme song that we know and that we're familiar with from watching it in Kablam. And I think that it qualifies for a couple reasons. In a lot of theme songs, we are fortunate, in many cases, to get a roll call. Right. We get one here. We get a roll call.
That's like all it is for me.
It's pretty much the entire thing. But then you have to think about it in the background. We have some horns. We have some horn music. And as I've said on the show in the past, if you put horns in your theme song or even your quasi theme song, I will still love it and I will get pumped up. I don't know. There's something about horns in a theme song that just get me pumped and motivated. Yeah, exactly. It just gets me pumped and it gets me motivated and I'm happy. I suddenly become more engaged when I hear a trumpet in the background or even just like a trombone. I'm just like, yeah, I'm paying attention now. Let's get into it. I guess maybe because it's not a musical instrument that you hear all the time on the radio.
Well, sure, these days, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about pop songs, and you think about maybe, I listen to a lot of rock or a lot of metal. There's not like a ska band suddenly popping
No.
out in the back, kind of supporting what they're
There's
doing.
no more Mambo number 5 coming in. There's
Oh,
no
Lou
Lou Bega
Bega
to save us.
I want a Lou Bega cartoon like you would not believe.
It would probably last about as long as Action League Now, roughly 3 months. That's not a dig. It's just,
No, it's
how much can you really get out of a Lou Bega cartoon?
It would be a Lou Bega cartoon where he goes on different blind dates with women, and it's sort of like Rock of Love, but with Lou Bega.
I don't think you did sell me on
I didn't
this
sell
one.
you on that one?
No.
Well,
I thought you were going to go with like adventures of like other Mambos that he could explore.
The twist on this is that Will Smith from Hitch shows up and is his dating coach.
Done. We just watched that the other day, so this is weird because Allison saw it like in the listings and was like, I never saw the end of that, which ended with us watching like somehow 3/4 of it, which I'm not super proud of. But I will never have to watch it again.
So to go back, I will say we get a roll call, we get trumpets, we get the standard intro that we're familiar with Kablam, that kind of gives you a lot of the setup, and I was excited about it. I was glad to see that they retained that element from the original series, or from the original series of shorts that they had. That was fun for me.
What's interesting to me though is that it was almost identical, but the energy felt different. It felt
Really?
Yeah, for me it felt a little less wacky. It felt a little more like they were taking themselves more seriously. Like they were like, "Hey guys, this is an actual series now." So like I don't know. It felt a little more stilted because in Kablam they were like, "It's the Flesh. He's super strong and super naked," and they're kind of like winking at you as they do it. But in this one, they're like, "It's the Flesh. He's super strong and super naked," and it's subtle. But I was just like, it doesn't seem like they're having as much fun. Or maybe it was because they were like, I gotta record all this shit again that I already did for all these shorts. I don't want to do it again. Can't you just use the original? I don't know. There was something a little off about it, and that for me carries through the rest of this series. There was something kind of magical, and you captured, kind of lightning in a bottle, if you want to use that phrase, in the original shorts. And when you tried to make it into a series, it didn't always translate for me. And I think that started with the theme song. That being said, I like it. It's a basic narration, it's a roll call, and it's got a great fanfare. So, like you said.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this whole thing is probably the animation style.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Because let's get into this. Because this animation style, we've talked about this before on the Kablam episode. There were a couple additional pieces that they threw into the mix tonight. What were how did you feel about this new discovery, this new little kind of added piece? I want to say interstitials that they had.
Okay, yeah, the interstitials. I have them kind of lumped into the plot. They do have a bit of it's not really mixed media. They have this weird thing that a lot of Nicktoons did when the heck did that start? Do you know? Having like kids actually like appear on the shows and ask questions.
I mean, I think that's like the whole idea of like late 80s and 90s Nickelodeon was to have kids on. I just, you see some of that stuff with even You Can't Do That on Television, where like they might have an animated short and then they might do like the locker interstitial where they're jumping out and telling like quick 1 or 2 liners. I think that it's very common for Nickelodeon to have that, but I will say it's maybe the first time that it's ever been in a Nicktoon itself.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering, because this show it's not a variety show really. It's just a bunch of small segments that are loosely tied together with a theme, at least in this first episode. And they have a bunch of interstitials, which we'll talk about in a second. But for me, I love this style of animation. It's kind of one of a kind. You really don't get to see that, especially these days, because digital software, animating software is so cheap and so user-friendly for the most part, and kind of anybody can do it. So people aren't going to spend time setting up camera and lighting and rigs and all that stuff just to throw an action figure across the camera for like one scene. Plus, this is like editing heavy. This is like editing intensive. There were so many cuts, and I don't know how many takes they had to do, but there were so many cuts and jumps and switches and just a crazy amount of like post-production work on these things. I also love the idea of setting up a shot for Chuckimation, because some of these were like pretty involved shots, right? We'll talk about sort
Yeah.
of a beach scene where there's a ton of figures and they're kind of just literally floating around because that you can't have people's hands in the screen manipulating them. So they're literally just floating in the water. Some of them are floating face down, some are floating face up, some are in little actual floaties, like little rubber inflatable rafts or whatever. Some, are kind of like straight up and down with their feet in the water. So like they're all set up, but it's all chaos. It's all just controlled chaos because these things can go topsy turvy. They can go sideways. They can drift off to another section of the pool at any given time. So I love the idea of the work that had to go into making each of these shots, whether it's making the character themselves, whether it's making the background, the things that they interact with, the things that are on their scale versus the things that they leave on like human scale just because it's background and we're not going to mess with it. Like, I love the amount of production and thought and creativity that has to go into that. I had a lot of fun with this. Sometimes you have to like have a precision stunt of having a character run over by a car. So, you don't want to mess that up because then can't use it again. Yeah.
And to the credit, there are so many times that I watched this episode
Same.
twice.
Yeah, me too.
Because there were moments where I wanted to see like if I could see the shadow of a hand or if I could see the actual strings moving.
I was always
hands.
looking like down by their feet to see if I can catch a knuckle or something, or to look for like ground cover and see if you could ever see their feet or if they were just like beneath it on a platform. Yeah.
And they go into so many ridiculously crazy and creative ways of obscuring that. Sometimes I kept thinking to myself, did they just glue the character's feet to a popsicle stick and then they're on a sandy beach and then they just have the popsicle stick like off camera and they're just kind of like moving it or like jiggling it back and forth on the side? I can't imagine. This has to be less stressful than doing actual stop motion animation, but more stressful than just regular animation because the number of variables, noise that's outside, since they're trying to do a lot of this in one take, and then you have to go back and I'm assuming that they are shooting this and then they have to go back and then they have to do the ADR and they have to do all the voice acting later. And so if maybe something didn't match up for a script or maybe they didn't give that character enough screen time, it's like, no, we're just slashing lines to hopefully make sense. But at the end, I think the fun and the enjoyment of this is that this show almost doesn't need to make any sense. Right. This show offers a reset button every 4 minutes to itself.
If not more so, because like characters will die, they'll lose pieces of themselves, and then they'll be just fine again. It's like watching an old Tom and Jerry cartoon where, people are bludgeoned or blown up with rockets or cut in half, and then they're fine. So it's very cartoonish. But it's also it's that controlled chaos of like, we need to get the shot. It needs to make sense within like the frame. But it also can be like, it doesn't matter if Thunder Girl goes flying halfway across the room and everybody else just kind of sits where they are. Like, that's hilarious. Just make sure you get the shot. Like, even there's a rocket that goes off at one point, and they literally launch like a rocket, like a backyard rocket, right? Like almost like a firework. And the poor camera guy has to like follow this trajectory of this rocket, and it kind of like goes off frame for a second and then it goes back up. And it's like, you get like one shot at that. I don't think they sent that rocket off very many times, but I would love...
Their rocket budget was
Their
real
rocket
low
budget
that
was
day.
one. You get one. It's one shot. This thing was like built on a shoestring budget, and I love that. And I would love to see a behind the scenes of like these crazy animators and grips and lighting people and camera operators and whoever's manipulating the little figures to do whatever they want them to do. I would love to see behind the scenes video of that. That would be fascinating to me. So I love this animation style, and I thought it was really endearing, and nothing really out there like it. Yeah.
The craziest thing and the question that I always go back to every time we've watched something similar to this, or just when we watched Kablam and we saw this for the first time, the question that I didn't have that's new from when I was a kid was, did they have these action figures specifically made for this show?
I think,
or
I thought we looked it up last time, and I can't remember if they were knockoffs that they just found, or if they specifically. I know they doctored them at some point, because like if you look at the flesh, it looks like he's had like pieces of whatever was on him like pulled off quite painfully. He's just got like divots all over his body, and they're not like normal pivot points for like body movement. And obviously, Meltman is just a melted something. So.
And I mean, with the Meltman character, I mean, it could literally be anything, but with Stinky Diver, Thunder Girl, the Flash, Chief, and the Mayor. These are all notable characters that you see in every episode, and or Scientist Bill, I think was what his name was. And so
Bill the lab guy.
saw the
Yeah.
Bill the lab guy. So you see these characters all the time, and I kept thinking to myself, and they're destroying these characters. Yeah. And if we haven't made this painfully clear, Chuckimation is exactly what it sounds like. It's animation by like hurling something into frame and just fingers crossed that it gets there. And so in some of these instances, I really had to think, like, was the sequence or was the writing just sort of freeform, like whatever they want, or were they influenced by the amount of actual characters that they had? Like, did this show end in February of 2002 because they just ran out of characters?
I don't know. I think it was probably more a ratings issue or something at that point, but or just this is probably a very like intensive process for both shooting and editing, and it probably just wasn't feasible. Even though it's super cheap, it probably just wasn't feasible from a time dedicated standpoint. You know what I mean? Like they still have to use the rendering machines to cut everything together. Maybe not rendering, but they have to use their editing software to put everything together.
Sure.
Package it all, and then, like you said, ADR it. So who knows? I would love an oral history of Action League Now that actually goes into the behind the scenes production of this stuff, because it's such a unique and strange show, but it was so cool at the same time. So if anybody out there was involved with the show, please let us know, and we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, please. And I always keep forgetting that this is from Pittsburgh, that this was done in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, which is weird. Like a lot of, because it doesn't sound like Pittsburgh. It's not like Censors talking. Yeah,
sorry. If people are unfamiliar with this, Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh specifically, has its own dialect, which is called Yinzer. It's Yinzer or Pittsburghese. It is like, I had to take a linguistics class when I was at University of Pittsburgh, and they delved into this. And it is crazy because it is something in and of itself to witness and behold. And you don't hear any of that come across in any of the voice talent for this show, which is surprising.
Yeah, I mean, probably for the better, because then that would have been weird to have been like, oh, this is definitely like a Pittsburgh show. But no, it's just local talent, I think, from Pittsburgh. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of nondescript. Everything else, though, yeah.
I did want to make one mention for something, because we keep referencing this. If you guys were thinking that we are going to continue to just reference this without actually bringing it up, go back and check out almost 100 episodes previous to this. Episode 82 is our episode that we have with Kablam from last January 2016.
Yeah, and then
I'm sorry, January 2016. Holy cow.
Was it January 2016 or 2015?
It was January 2016.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 2 years. That makes sense. To Sean's point, he mentioned some kind of like mixed media, some different kinds of animation. This also uses, I mean, we've got the live action kids that come in. We've got some weird kind of interstitials we'll talk about. I love the fact that they use like a hand puppet in this to actually get some like character action within the frame itself. So I really love this, man. I thought it was really cute.
Cute?
Super cute.
Super cute.
Like destructive and violent, but just like fun and cute. I like it.
Yeah.
It's something I feel like I could do here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems very frantic. It seems very kinetic. The energy is high. The jokes are dumb, but they don't. Yeah. They never linger in anything for too long. And like we said, it's in 4-minute increments on other shows like Kablam or all that, it's fine. But like when you put these back to back to back, and we'll get into this a little later, like it's kind of a daunting task then at that point. These interstitials were nice, and we had 3 of them, I believe.
They chopped some of them up, so there's like 3 different kinds.
There was one, 3 different kinds. There was one that got chopped up into like a second. It had like they posed a trivia question out, and then they come back and they answered at the very end. And so
let me ask you this. What worked more for you? The dialogue gags and jokes with the characters, or the visual gags of them being chucked around different ways?
Oh, the visual jokes of them just being smashed and wrecked and destroyed. Again, I can't imagine. I keep thinking that the people who shot this and put this together, that these 3 guys must have had some type of a 3D printer that they went into the future and they brought it back, and then they were making these characters, and they were like, "Don't worry, we'll make more. Just destroy them." And they were like, "Okay."
I mean, if you look at the credits, they do have. first of all, a shitload of people worked on this production too. So
Yeah.
it looks like something that you and your buddies can just do at home. You can, but it's going to take you a lot longer than it will these like 50 people that worked on the show.
Also, really fun thing to notice and understand about this is that if you're with friends and you're with buddies, maybe that did or didn't work on this show, a very fun drinking game is to take a shot every time they say the phrase "Action League now."
Yikes, you did. Sorry.
You
Thanks
dead.
for playing.
You dead.
You're dead. Thanks for playing. You're dead.
So we've talked about, we've got theme song, we've got animation. Let's jump into characters,
Absolutely.
Dave.
I mean, it's the same ones
So I
that we
wanted-
knew from the Kablam series.
Right.
Again, though, some slight changes that I kind of picked up on.
I didn't get these changes, buddy. So what happened?
Well, so remember the Flesh, obviously, which it cracks me up every time he's on screen because it's just there's something weird about just seeing like a totally naked character on screen. I don't care if
totally naked, incompetent character.
yeah, I mean that's fine, but like it's just weird to like turn on the TV and just be like, there's a person who's totally naked. Like it doesn't matter if it's an action figure, it doesn't matter if it's a cartoon show or whatever. It's just like that's unusual, and they just like head to toe. He's always just there. He is. But what I thought was interesting was in Kablam, he was just as stupid, but he actually used his super strength on occasion. He actually used his powers. He did something with it. He held stuff up or he held stuff back or he crushed stuff or whatever. Like, if I remember correctly, he actually used his super strength. In this episode, he doesn't do anything. He's essentially like reduced to like the comic relief, the simple comic relief. And I was kind of bummed by that.
He uses it in the first sequence that we have almost immediately, and it's not for heroics. No. It ends up being
just a gag,
like you said. Yeah, just a way to kind of throw him and everybody else and knock them around.
And that made me laugh.
And kind of live up to that whole, again, it's going for that visual gag, but you don't really build anything in terms of the characters that you have, especially for the Flash.
And that's the thing. It's like this show would work so much better if they actually like pseudo functioned as a superhero team. They got some stuff done, even if they screwed up a bunch of stuff along the way. It would just add an extra kind of layer to it. Like you'd be like, oh, it's very funny to watch them get blown apart and everything, but oh, okay, it's kind of cool. They actually did save the day at the end and not by their own bumbling.
It's like when you watch Archer and you're like, yeah, it's crazy and they're silly and this is bananas and the writing is superb and the bits and the gags are super fun, but at the end you're just like, oh wait, they actually resolved that thing
against all odds.
Against all odds, they like actually did some spy work. Right. That's pretty incredible.
Well, that's what I kind of like. And each of those characters has their own kind of like particular trait that defines them.
Right.
And they've changed over the years, but I mean, I don't know what does the only person I've got a trait for is Stinky Diver and maybe the chief and maybe Bill and the mayor. But I mean, like, they're pretty broad. Does anybody else jump out at you?
No, not really. I mean, nobody has any specific traits. The one question that I do have is when they introduced Thunder Girl, they said she flies
like thunder.
Like thunder. Is that a joke? Because thunder really doesn't fly.
I think it just
thunder
has
just
to be
kind
a
of
very silly thing. Like it doesn't make sense. So it's just a weird kind of non sequitur.
Because like lightning crashes according to the band from Pennsylvania Live. According to Live,
an old
so lightning
dies.
Crashes. Yep. Oh no!
Her placenta falls.
We should have watched the curse. We should have watched the curse episode for this.
Sorry, but those are the lyrics. Look them up.
Yeah, I know. But like thunder kind of like rumbles and his atmospheric effect. You are loving this live joke. Pun Tank is getting back up there, buddy.
Live in the back of my head while Sean's talking.
Oh boy. So. Like, is that kind of the joke? I guess maybe I haven't realized that the first couple times I've watched this.
I don't think it really bears thinking too much about. The only thing I could say is maybe, we came out of that era where everything, you had Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, and then you started getting like, I don't know, Ant-Man, I guess, and like maybe like Rock Guy, and like everything started to be, you got down to the minutia of like what a adjective man or adjective woman could be. So maybe this is one of those things where it's just like Thunder Girl. She flies. She flies like thunder. All right, moving on. Like it might just be that simple, where it's just like it's sort
of like the Thunderbolt from Shazam, on her chest, and I kind of wonder what came first, is the chicken or the egg scenario. Did they get the character and they're just like, yeah, she's got a thunderbolt, Thunder Girl, easy, or were they just like, ugh,
See, this is the kind of stuff I want to know. Like, did they just
what are
find
we
like a
gonna do?
knockoff kind of like, I don't know, different kind of Barbie doll, and then just like put her in a Shazam costume? Like,
Right.
I would love to see that stuff. If they just found these things in like a bargain bin somewhere, and we're like, nobody's ever going to file a copyright lawsuit against this, so let's just make a Chuckimation show about it.
My God, guys that are a part of Toys That Made Us, can you get on
It's gonna be
this,
a deep
please?
cut. Deep cut.
Yeah, but I want it. That's the
I
cut
do
that I
too.
want.
Speaking of the cut that
Damn.
I want, Stinky Diver cuts deep.
Oof. Does it?
He was the only one who I thought had a stronger personality trait come across. He was very
Okay.
much like a kind of a hunter, kind of macho, kind of alpha male, wanted to get stuff done, didn't care about stupid science getting in the way. Was like a carnivore, just wanted to kill and eat everything. I was just like,
Yeah.
all right, Stinky, like I
Dumb science.
yeah, dumb science, dumb fish monsters. Like, I get it. Like, okay, that's fine. It's a strong choice, and I appreciate it. But that was it. Like, nobody else really came through. Like, Meltman was just kind of there. The chief obviously just yells a lot, and he hates the team, but he needs them to get stuff done.
I love the chief.
I love the
I
chief.
love the
but-
chief. I love the chief, and I love the character that we haven't talked
Yeah.
about,
Well,
who is
we got
present
two left.
all the time. Yeah. Who do you have? Who's the two left?
Well, I like Bill.
Oh, you like
I
Bill?
like Bill the lab guy.
I like the narrator.
Narrator's great. We also have the mayor, who's the antagonist. We'll talk about him more in the plot, but it's just funny to make your mayor the antagonist of the show.
Yeah, it's a interesting
Yeah, I like
choice, but fun. I mean,
Tell me
fun.
about the narrator. What's up?
I enjoy just sort of the intonation of this narrator's voice. I like the setup. There's just a lot of weird and dumb comments that he will make throughout the entire episode, and I don't know what it is. It's just every time that it came up, it was sort of like a groan and an eye roll for me when he would make these bad puns and these bad jokes. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on board. Now, to give you a frame of reference, or to give you an example, there's the one moment where we're in a Jurassic Park ripoff, and we're coming back from a commercial break, and the setup is Dino, Wacko, Hero, Snacko. And it's so
It's very silly.
it's very silly, and they constantly are, and it's sort of a groan, but I don't know why I enjoyed them so much.
Because
I think
it
it was
works
because it was
with this style.
unrelenting.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
It was
fully commit to it. They sometimes wink at the camera, but for the most part, they fully commit, and they're just like, "This is what you're here for the next 25 minutes."
And I think that that's actually what it is it's the commitment, but really what it is it's sort of that breaking of the fourth
Yes.
wall, which is something that happens immediately following our theme song that we have for tonight, where they sort of talk about the fact that several of the stories tonight are ripped off, and then he's like, inspired
Yeah,
by popular movies, and I think some of our super smart viewers may know which ones those are.
Exactly.
And I love the fact that it's almost like a challenge, because for me to say super smart viewers, I'm like, oh, I'm super smart. I'm like, I'm 30 fucking 7 and I'm watching a cartoon from 2001. Like, who gives a shit? But in my brain, I'm just like, oh, I could probably get these references.
Yeah,
I'll
so
probably
so
pick them
this
out.
is
I'll probably be pretty good.
this is a great segue into the plot itself. So the first section, after the narrator has kind of introed everything, which is a cool kind of setup, the first section, the first story we're talking about, is titled Armageddon Outta Here, which is obviously a ripoff or inspired by Deep Impact. So that's what we'll be talking about
You son of a
for
bitch.
this section, is Deep Impact.
Not Armageddon. Not the movie Armageddon
Oh,
that came out within
no,
months.
you know what?
Of
Armageddon. You're right.
now, are you sure it's not Deep Impact?
It's probably Armageddon. It's right there in the
Probably
title.
Armageddon.
Shit. Well, 0 for 1. That's
Are
fine.
you fucking with me on this?
100%.
Did you not?
100%. And I will
God
continue
damn
to
it.
the rest of this episode. It was actually more fun for me to come up with alternate titles that are close enough, but not quite the same. There's a fun story about Armageddon / Deep Impact that I don't think I should tell in a recording, but it comes straight from Michael Bay. So for another time, remember that, kids.
Fair enough.
Armageddon Outta Here. What's going on at the beginning of this one? This was probably my favorite gag of the early goings.
Okay, so we have scientist Bill,
My bud.
and he he is checking out some of the constellations that are in the night sky. Rest of the team, with the exception of the Flesh, are kind of humoring him and his exploration into the galaxy. When suddenly the Flesh shows up and is like, "Oh, what are we looking at?" And they're like, "We're looking at the stars." "Oh, is it Sandra Bullock?" And I don't.
His delivery at this point was so weird because he goes, "Goodies! I want to see Sandra Bullock's," and he said it with
Yeah.
an S. I was
Yeah.
just like, that's a weird.
Like, is it supposed to be like bollocks?
or
like,
Bullock's like I don't know. I thought that was like an animal or something.
no. Like when you say like bollocks, like,
No,
or,
no,
like bullocks. Like,
Bullock's just sounded
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
I think it was just the Flesh just being a friggin' weirdo, and I liked it. A, because you've got Bill and his deadpan delivery that comes up right after this. but I guess A1, when you have Flesh who just like
steak sauce.
delicious, sponsored by A1. Flesh just flies in. He's like, "Oh, goodies!" And he just wails into this telescope. He sends everybody else flying. Telescope starts spinning, and then Bill checks it again, and he's basically like, "Oh no, a meteor that's about to smash into the Earth." So they've set up pretty much the entire premise for this 5-minute run. But I love his delivery because he's like an underpaid actor in like a 50s bad B sci-fi movie. And he's just like, "I don't know, a meteor, whatever will we do?"
He's like somebody's nephew that's taken one.
He's like Jaden Smith.
Maybe college level acting. He's Jaden Smith. He's Jaden Smith.
So what was the plot of Armageddon?
They got to,
What was the plan? In
an asteroid, like an asteroid is heading towards Earth, and the idea is that they're going to send up these miners,
these oil
these roughnecks, Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck, and they're going to send them up there, and they're going to drill a hole in the side of this asteroid.
Michael Clark Duncan and crazy ass.
That's right, Steve Buscemi. Yeah. And so they send them up. I'm thinking about who's on the movie poster, because it's also Liv Tyler, right? And so they're gonna send them up
playing with animal crackers.
Didn't do shit. And so they're gonna drill into the side of the asteroid. They're gonna detonate a huge explosion, and it's gonna change the course of the asteroid so that it doesn't collide with it.
Do we get that deep into the plot in Armageddon out of here?
We get no, not really. I think the enjoyable part about this entire episode is the Chuckimation aspect of it, where they're just like, we're going to, and I should say this is probably my favorite part about all of this, and this for me was one of my favorite physical gags that they were doing in this, was the whole idea where they're just like, the chief's just like, "Tough toenails, we gotta get you to like be NASA astronauts." And so then they put the entire team
right before they get into this, and this is the fun part too. I just want to mention, the plan is to put these guys in a rocket, load that rocket full of explosives, which are basically just like a pile of grenades and like TNT and fireworks they have just gathered on the table, on the countertop. But then we got to train them up. So go ahead, get to your montage.
So they do this whole fun montage where it's like they put the entire team in a salad spinner in order to simulate G-force, and they throw them across the kitchen. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna use this sledgehammer to simulate." I think it was gravity, and they're like, "That looks like a real sledgehammer." They're like, "Yeah, it's a sledgehammer that simulates gravity as it smashes the shit out of them." And then they get to the final third one, which I thought was really fun, where it's a launch simulator, and they're like, "Can we just get to it?" Like, you know what the pattern of behavior is going to be at this point. They're going to try to destroy these, and they shoot them up into the ceiling, into like one of those like paneled ceilings,
like the drop tile.
Drop tile ceilings, and they just like embed them in it, which is just super fun because then their legs are like moving, so somebody's like above that, twitching and moving all these bodies, so they look like they're wiggling as they're stuck in that drop. But
that's
panel.
the stuff. That's the stuff that I'm talking about, where it's like you have to think about that ahead of time, and then you have to rig the shot so that they're like embedded in there, and it looks like they just got stuck in there, and then do that. I just like that little kind of like the pre-planning ahead of time, and just cracking up at how ridiculous that whole thing is. So now we get to our famed shuttle launch that we talked about earlier.
And I love the reference where they say they're at Cape Crabgrass.
Cape Crabgrass.
Instead of Cape Canaveral, they're at Cape Crabgrass.
Was it crabgrass or crabapple?
It was crabgrass, because it's a type. I think crabgrass is a type of grass that you would have like in a lawn.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just golf club. And so it's just like silly specifics like that of just like dumb things just made me really laugh. Then they launch, we get that jank
Yeah.
pan all the way up as the
It looks like a
rocket
bad,
is
like
the-
early YouTube clip of somebody trying to use a camera. Yeah.
Yep. And this is where suddenly this kind of almost translates into them on the deck of the USS Enterprise because they
Exactly.
kind of straight up rip off Star Trek at this point, which is
No,
fun.
it was great.
Which is fun.
Because like
Yeah.
everybody's in their different, Thunder Girl's in her captain's chair. Everybody else is at their different stations, but none of them are really doing anything. I love that Stinky had an actual like wheel. Like what? I don't know what you're gonna do with a wheel in a space shuttle, but it was pretty funny. Yeah.
I think it's fun and comic. I think it's fun and comical because then they could break the wheel
Exactly.
off, and you could just be like, oh no,
no.
because if it's like a throttle for a plane, like I guess it's maybe just not the same comedic effect. Plus, you have to think who was making tiny little throttles for
And
planes
to make
that
them
they could
actually
break off.
to make his arm actually
Yeah.
go back. No, just hold a wheel. You'll be
No.
fine.
Yeah, hold the wheel.
All right, so it sounds like the plan's good.
Yeah, I mean they forgot the bombs. They forgot the bombs.
Forgot the bombs.
Yeah, and so when we were referencing and we're making light of the fact that they can just pull back Stinky Diver's arms with a broken wheel and show this, the Action League is like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, we're not going to crash into this thing, which is the suggestion of the chief to throw it off course.
To save the Earth.
They're like, no, like we're done. We're going home. Like, screw this. Like, we don't want to die. And in their celebration, they break the ship, which gets put on a crash course and then ends up colliding with the asteroid.
Which was a fun bit of Chuckimation too, I think, with a little bit of extra like After Effects added with the like light, the flashing light, and the smoke cloud.
Yeah.
But it was fun to just like chuck a space shuttle at a piece of dirt. Basically, is all they really did.
Yeah. I will say the final shot that they have for this bit, where you can see the planet Earth and then you can see the Action League now sort of on this asteroid and it's sort of moving away, and so you see the Earth getting smaller. Really, really fun shot composition to kind of show everything that was there. They do a good job again, as they always have, with just understanding size and space with the limited ability that they have for these action figures. So it's kind of a blast.
Yeah, that actually gave some depth to it, because I think they probably just had the Earth model on like a dowel, and if the dowel was kept behind the camera, they just kind of pulled it back so the Earth slowly got smaller. But it was a neat shot that you could just do in frame. This is a nice kind of like practical maneuver there. And we were talking about continuity before. So this meteor is not supposed to come back around for 100,000 years, and that's where the Action League is. But it doesn't matter, because we jump right from this into an interstitial, and then we get back into another segment. Let's take a break and talk about the different interstitials they have here.
Sure.
So
you want to hit all three of them?
Sure, because one of them was kind of sad for me, I think.
Oh, really?
Behind the plastic.
Okay.
They literally just ask Meltman, like, what's up with your face? Like, how long does that take to get the makeup on, or what kind of mask do you have? And he repeatedly just says,
that hideous,
that hideous
prosthetics.
Yeah, he's like, I don't
that
understand
you put on for your costume.
what you're talking about. This is just my face. And then just like, now back to the show. And they follow it up again with Ask the League, which was what we were talking about before, where they have real kids come on, and the pull quote is, real kids ask real questions of fake superheroes. The very next time, this little girl asks Meltman what's up with his face again. He's like, it's not a mask. It's not a mask.
And just the reaction shot that they have for her of just sort of the furrowed brow with sort of like the deadpan look of like, I don't get it. So it is priceless. It's fun.
I was happy that they moved past that. What was the other Ask the League question? Do you remember?
I think that was it.
No, there was another one where a kid asked the Flesh what his favorite movie was.
Oh, that's right. God, I forget what the answer.
The Naked Gun.
Oh, that's right, because they said because it has the word naked in it, and he's just like,
it does?
Yeah. Like you just said the word naked.
It's like,
gun.
we get it. He's dumb. But it was just silly. It was just to buy time and to like cut down on their production budget a little bit better. Here's a fun one called Action IQ. We're going to pop quiz our listeners out there. So we'll tell you guys the answer to this if we remember at the end of the show. I'm probably going to forget. Here's the question.
Gotcha.
In the Action League episode Rock a Big Baby, starring Kiss, It opened for what feature film? Was it A, Gone with the Wind, B, Shakespeare in Love, or C, Good Burger? Think about that. We'll come back later on and we'll answer it for you.
Ooh.
Okay, we've got our second segment of the night. This one was titled Incident at Chlorine Lake, an obvious riff on Lake Placid. What do you think? What do you think about this one?
This one was fun. I liked the main villain of this. I thought this was super
Now,
fun.
who do you think the main villain is?
So I thought the main villain was actually the trophy
Oh,
bass.
you did? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
He wasn't mean, he was just hungry.
Yeah, he was hungry, but at the same time, they in true Chuckamation fashion, they have all of these pool shots that are leaning down where they have the entire Action League, and they're confronting with the mayor who has opened up this pool resort where he's charging exorbitant amounts of money for
Which
hot
is
dogs.
why I think he's the main villain, especially because this is actually a riff on Jaws, where
Right, I know it's.
yeah. I know you do. I'm just clarifying for people out
You're
there. I didn't
killing
think it was
me.
actually Lake Placid.
When you said Lake Placid, that was honestly the first reaction I had when I saw the title, and I was like, "No, we're watching Jaws. I don't get what the deal is." I was like, "I think this show is fucking with me now at this point." Like, it's just so. Yeah, I mean, I think the mayor has a business scheme that he's trying to put in there, but I think as a result of him being eaten and attacked by the trophy
And
bass
surviving.
itself and surviving. I think it makes him sort of less of a villain in my eyes than the trophy bass himself, who's actually instigating all of the events that occur during
Let me
this.
ask you this, though. In
Yeah.
Jaws, the
Yeah.
villain of the piece, is it the shark who's just doing what sharks do? Or is it the mayor who
boat.
keeps it's the
Oh.
boat? Or is it the mayor who keeps the town open despite the warning of the scientists and the sailors? And of having multiple people eaten by the shark?
Again, I still think it's the boat.
I think it's the boat. I think it's Quentin's hat.
I think
His little hat. That's some bad hat.
No, I think it's kind of a combination of both. I think it's a perfect storm of both
Sure.
of those elements kind of coming together.
This was actually pretty well done, though, for like a 5-minute mini spoof of that, incredible film, Jaws. They did a good job of hitting kind of like the main beats and then twisting them and putting a fun spin on them. Like when the mayor gets kind of bitten in half by this trophy bass, which, by the way, is a stuffed bass mounted to a wooden plaque that is swimming through the water, which I thought was the funniest damn thing. If this would have been one of those stupid Billy basses where you push the button and it sings at you, that would have been slightly better. But
Bad to the bone. I used that. I had somebody gave me one of those as like a joke gift for Christmas one year, and I promptly just I think threw it away.
yeah, my dad
I was
loves
like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this?
Damn Bubba, big mouth Billy Bass. Anyway,
Oh Christ!
once the mayor gets bitten in half, he is still trying to sell. He's trying to upsell everybody on these things. So he's got this kiosk set up for bass repellent, which is selling for like
Right.
10 or 20 bucks a pop. So I thought that was fun.
I love the fact. I love in this the amount of coordination that they had to do for some of the Chuckamation.
crazy.
They are driving a speedboat in a swimming
Love
pool, and it's a remote control. It's an RC boat that they are motoring around this pool. And then at one point, Stinky Diver's like, "This is where I get off." And then they have like a string and they just yank him off the boat. And I was like, "That's some fun pre-planning."
This
that
boat also
probably was a fun fucking shot.
The boat also runs over all the surviving swimmers in the pool while they're swimming, and then does a bunch of like circles, and then hits a ramp and lands on the mayor at his bass repellent kiosk. I love that. That's a great sequence.
I had to say probably though, and I began to mention and explain this, but they have these shots of the side of the pool that is there, and they have the entire Action League that's standing around, and somebody makes a comment about like being able to go in or is it safe, and then they just splash water on everybody, and in the water are just
Body
dismembered
parts.
doll parts
Everywhere.
that just
Hands,
wash
legs,
up.
feet, arms.
And they are all shapes and sizes, and they like there's no none of them look like they came from the same human being or the same like planet in terms of relative size. It is just so stupid funny to watch.
But what I love about that, and what's kind of like between the scenes in that moment, is some person or people had to stand there just pulling apart doll limbs, throwing them in a bucket of water, and making sure they had enough so that then when they tossed the water onto the scene, that all those parts came out and they floated they floated out like they were supposed to. I just love that like weird bit of behind the scenes production value. Thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, no.
How about the very end of
Yeah.
this particular one? How does it all end? Because this is where
This is the
Stinky
part
kind of
where-
shows some of his personality again.
Right. So Stinky is in the water. He's in the process of, we have our scientist Bill is like, no, you seriously, like, I want to study this trophy bass. Please don't shoot him. Stinky ends up shooting this trophy bass with his harpoon gun. He hits him in the side. They go for a little bit
this
of
is
ride.
right after the bass has swallowed Bill, by the way.
Has swallowed scientist Bill whole. And so they're going on this ride where Stinky Diver's kind of being pulled along with everything. They hit this ramp that jumps out of the pool. This is the part where you see the mayor with the bass repellent. They smash into him.
No, that was that was
the boat. That was the boat.
Basically the bass, like his trajectory just takes him out of the pool and into the street. Yeah.
Into the street. This is the part where they have a semi truck run over. They have run over this trophy bass, and then it's dead and it's destroyed. And Stinky Diver is okay. And then Scientist Bill emerges from inside of the trophy bass, and in that moment, you're just like, Stinky Diver is gonna get hit by a truck, and then he gets run over by a truck.
But my favorite part of that was when the bass was killed and Bill emerges fine. He's like, "You didn't have to do it. When will the killing stop?" And Stinky was like, "Man was born to dominate and crush his adversaries in the wild. Period. End of sentence." And then he just gets run over by a truck. It was great. It was a great moment. We got two left. We got two little things left.
Do we have two left?
We have two left. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's two left. This one was titled, this is probably pretty easy to figure out. So this one was titled Your Plastic Park, which is an obvious reference to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom coming to a theater near you this summer.
You son of a gun.
This one was kind of fun.
I thought this was Dino Riders.
You thought it was Dynamite? Damn it. Sorry, I talked over your pun joke.
I said Dino Riders.
Oh, damn it. I thought you said Dynamite, which would have been the best.
Pun tank's low right now. So, yeah. We've got a Jurassic Park sequence that happens here. This is the one that I mentioned with the Dino Wacko Hero Snacko. Yes. Again, it seems like we have Scientist Bill, who's really kind of defending the things that most of Action League wants to destroy.
Is why I like Scientist Bill, yeah.
Which is why, he's a good foil. And so then so this is the part where Dave has mentioned that we have a puppet.
Yes.
So it ends up.
Before we get to the puppet, we find out that Bill, if you remember Jurassic Park, Bill is kind of taking on the role of multiple different people. He's taking on the role of, what was his name, like Muldoon. He was like the hunter.
Robert Muldoon.
Clever girl, like all that kind of stuff. He's taking on that role. He's also taking on the role of like the lead scientist who's in charge of the park as well, and also the guy who's making money from selling things that are based on the park. So he's kind of like all encompassing all the kind of business type ne'er-do-wells of Jurassic Park. Anyway, he has cloned a bunch of plastic dinosaurs from a shard of plastic somewhere, but one of them has happened to emerge as a carnivore. The rest of them are herbivores, but one happens to be a carnivore. So go ahead.
Which is a very fun line where he's like, I have cloned all these herbivores. And then I think the flesh is the first one that gets picked up and eaten by this puppet. And he's like, oh, yeah, except for that one. You're like,
I love that line because he's like, no, it's what I feared would happen. Now he has a taste for flesh. And it's just very silly, but also funny because that's his name. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a great moment where they play with a lot of the scale. Yes. And so they have these moments where they have a giant foot that comes into the foreground of the frame and just kind of smashes down. And then you see the puppet like in the background. Now the puppet itself does not seem like it's huge, but just the way that they're able to kind of put it and frame it against everything else, it makes the size much more grandiose than what it is. The foot continually stomping, I think they do it like 2 or 3 times, is a really fun effect to kind of like add that Jurassic Park feel, where the iconic scene from the original where, the brother and sister are in the Jeep, and all of a sudden you hear the stomping of the T-Rex, and you see like the glass,
or you just see
like,
that
kind
footprint
of ripple in the water.
That foot come down in the mud and kind of you see that first
exactly.
thing. I just love that there was a guy standing there with a dowel that at the end of it had a this puppet foot that he just pushed down into the sand. Like that's all he did the entire time.
And the whole conceit of this is that if they can't save the dinosaurs and if they can't save Professor Bill, then the Navy is going to destroy this island and they're going to nuke and bomb everything that's on there and they're going to completely remove it. And so at the very end, in true Chuckimation fashion, as we have all of our characters that are in the stomach of this puppet dinosaur, which is they've all been eaten. They have Stinky Diver take off his flippers, and the odor of his feet is enough to make the dinosaur throw up and spit them out. And so they have the chief that's on the boat, and again, in true chief fashion, he's just screaming and yelling. He's just like, "We can't do this! Action League's on there right now!" And they're like, "We're gonna do it." He's like, "Well, I tried.
I tried.
It's so fun to see him turn on a dime and just be like, "Well, did a thing. Not gonna work out. Fuck it." So I mean, these like, I don't know why I keep laughing at the chief, because I think he's speaking with so much energy and conviction compared to some of the other characters that are there. And then suddenly, like, the moment he's just like, "You guys got to do this. No, you're not going to do it. You know what? Fuck it. I don't really care." So we have this moment where he's on the deck of this naval ship. Everybody gets spit out of the dinosaur, and they just get thrown onto the deck. I can't imagine the number of takes that had to have taken to get that right.
And not bust the ship.
Oh, boy. Yeah. I mean, just hilarious. And that's pretty much the end. And the chief is just like, "Oh, it's you."
So I got a couple of things. One, they had this fun gag where like they try to get away from the dinosaur. So they're like, I forget who says it. Might have been Stinky. He's like, "Everybody get to the helicopter." And then that foot gag comes in again where it smashes the helicopter to bits. So they're like, "Everybody get away from the helicopter." So it's just like a fun little back and forth. They actually save the bombing of this island with Bill pleading with the captain and saying, "If you don't do it for me, do it for the love of science, for the love of knowledge, and the love of sequels." And the captain's like, "Sequels? Lads, we have a franchise to save," so he doesn't bomb the island. And then at the very end, they have this kind of like dominoes, like falling down sequence of various movie posters. So it's like, what was it? Your Plastic Park, Your Plastic Park 2, The Lost World.
Part 2.
Part 3, It's Still Lost. Part 4 is like, we haven't found it. But it was kind of prescient because it's like now they've made, they're going to make 6 or more of these movies. So it's kind of like, well, they're not really far off. So good job. Good job, actually. All right, we got one more to get through. This one is titled "A Star is Torn," which is an obvious reference to the classic Hollywood film Sunset Boulevard. So what happens in this one? What's going on with this one?
This one we have Thunder Girl gets identified as possible talent by a movie director,
which is weirdly the plot of a movie called "A Star Is Born." In case you were wondering. That's right. This is a much more obscure Hollywood reference that probably only made me laugh, but that's fine.
There's actually an obscure reference that is in this episode itself towards the end that I enjoyed to no end when they made it. Yeah, there is. And so Thunder Girl has been identified as talent by this director, wink, wink,
What's his name?
Who is his name is Louis D. Mayer.
Louis de Mayer.
Louis de Mayer. And so we have Louis de Mayer. If you're paying attention, obviously we have the mayor who is sort of our villain that we have against the Action League now. And so he's identified Thunder Girl as talent because he wants air superiority. And he for some reason, and he feels that if he takes out Thunder Girl, that he will have air superiority above the rest of Action League now. And so he is trying to kill her off through an elaborate series of destructive pranks and shots that are as a part of this movie.
What I loved about this was it was titled Deadly Thunder, but more what I loved about it was how quickly Thunder Girl turns into like an absolute diva.
That's the best, because it's within, again, it's turn on the dime for this. Like, I mean, she's having a conversation with Louis de Mayer, and then she somebody is rotating Thunder Girl's legs, and she has a pair of like big sunglasses on, and she's already complaining about like, "Where's my assistant? I want mineral water. Like, where's all these things?" Yeah, and so it's just it's fun, it's crazy. It's a lot of the same tropes that they even call out in this episode that people would think about Hollywood if there's a lot of if you were asked Yeah, if you were to say like, "Hey, give me some Hollywood tropes that you know," like they dogpile them into this
What
episode.
I thought was a little disturbing in this one is how brutal the Chuckamation gets. Because Thunder Girl
It
gets
gets
like
real
battle
weird.
damage. And it's not,
Yeah.
it approaches not even super funny, just kind of like, man, you guys really went like aggressive with the abuse layering here. Most of the time you get to see the characters kind of like, blown apart or whatever, but then they come back together at the end. They don't have like sustained battle damage over time. They don't bruise, they don't bleed, they don't have like teeth knocked out or hair pulled or whatever. Not so with
Sure.
Thunder Girl in this one. She goes through quite the ringer.
Do you remember the first sequence of events that kind of put her worse?
First, she gets hit by a train.
Right. She loses an arm
She
as a
loses
result.
one arm as a result. The second one, which I think was probably the most brutal, she gets thrown into a fan, like a spinning fan.
Yep. Well, she needs motivation.
She does need
to
motivation.
Understand.
She's an artist.
She needs motivation.
She's an actor.
So she loses her other arm as a result of this, and her hair and like is pretty much butchered and fried.
But
at this
meanwhile,
point.
she's got like black eyes and like a knocked out tooth, and it's
She's like, yeah.
And she's looking in the mirror with no arms, and she's like, I can't quite tell which is my best side. What I thought was really weird here was that Meltman and Stinky, or I'm sorry, the Flesh and Stinky were her like cronies. They were her like Turtle and
Yes,
E
man.
to her,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, her
Exactly.
yes men, her cronies, her kind of starstruck assistants that didn't say like, hey, maybe you should calm down.
Entourage, Dave. You're looking for entourage.
Entourage is what this sequence is based on. It's based on Marky Mark Wahlberg. And the Wahlberg is
Oh,
it was
boy.
kind of it's funny and it's silly for kids, but like it was a little rough. It was a little rough to watch sometimes.
It's a little rough, and so let me outline the idea for the third
Sure.
sequence, because rule of three, we have to close
Got to.
this out. They have, Louis DeMayer has rigged up a safe that is in this nondescript kitchen that they have that is going to drop and fall on Thunder Girl to injure and possibly hurt her even more. Now, the thing that is so funny about this, in order to get this sequence of events and convey it to the viewer, they have a potato. They have a potato in a blonde, frizzy-haired wig underneath, and they stomp the potato. But the hair stays on top of this mashed
It does
potato.
indeed.
I don't know why it's so
It was funny because they
but
actually use
every-
like, how often do you see a safe actually drop on somebody? But they actually did it in this one. Just happened to be like a mashed potato or a baked potato.
It's like a
turned mashed.
parboiled
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
potato that they just like put a wig on and then just crushed on this.
Pretty damn funny.
I was laughing. I was like, this is so dumb, but I'm enjoying this immensely.
It was pretty good. But the only person who's been paying attention this entire time is Meltman. He knows something's up, but
Yeah.
nobody's listening to him. They even threatened to like throw him off the set because he's acting up so much. But Meltman discovers that the mayor's actually behind everything. Surprise, surprise. And he kind of catches him in the act. And he randomly gets the mayor. He drops the safe on the mayor. Mayor's kind of fine. He's just driven into the floor like a pile driver a little bit. But then Meltman takes his mask off. Lo and behold, it's the mayor. Everybody goes home happy, right? What happens?
No, because this is actually
right.
now, so we we have to have somebody make a grand gesture in this case, and we also have to have a majority of the actual lights that are on the set come crashing down and pretty much fall directly on top of our heroes.
And that's pretty much where they ended. The narrator comes in and he's like, join us again next week for another exciting adventure of Action League Now. Take a shot. Hey.
That's it.
Oh, it's not it, though.
Oh, it's not. Here we go, because we're coming back and we're going
There
to
you
answer
go. Good
this
job,
trivia
buddy.
question.
So what do you think it was?
You guys, oh my God, you know what? I'll be honest, when it first came up and I was hit with option B, I was like, maybe it could have been Shakespeare in
Could have
Love.
been.
But clearly,
Wasn't.
when they came up with C and they said
That's
Good
right.
Burger, it had to have been
Had
Good
to be
Burger.
There's no other way. Good old branding.
So
Opening a Nickelodeon
they're
movie
just-
with a Nicktoon.
I was like, wait, did they re-release Gone with the Wind in 2001? Is like
This would
some
have been an odd choice.
like, yeah, it would have been a real odd choice. I was like, this in front of Shakespeare in Love, I don't know that really sets the mood for a Tom Stoppard movie.
Unless Kiss did the soundtrack, maybe. I could see that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can see that being a crossover. But yeah,
So-
absolutely. They're doing Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. May I take your order?
Love orange soda. I don't know what that voice was. That was like a surfer dude. If you guys pick
Yeah.
Good Burger, congratulations. You win nothing, but you should be
Ding, ding,
super
ding,
proud of
ding.
yourselves. Well done.
You did it.
That's about it. Do you have anything else from Action League now?
No, I think that's
I'm bummed
everything.
we didn't get to see Justice. He's a good doggo. 11 out of 10.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Justice. I feel like we get a good amount of characters, and I feel like
Enough.
in any episode you probably could have gotten too much of Justice.
Probably true.
Because
He does get one episode,
yeah,
I think, all to himself, or at least one segment all to himself.
that's
I don't
fun.
know what he does.
It's just probably like a dog related segment, so I could see that happening. Guys, guess what? We have opinions about this show. You guys also have opinions about this show, and we want to be respectful of that, and we want to talk about it. And so we're going to hand it over to longtime listener in front of the show, Bobby Anthem, for this week's Love It or Hate It. Bobby, take it away.
This week, our Love It was written by AOP War on August 24th, 2006, who rated the show 10 out of 10 and titled the review Awesome. It says, "This is perhaps the only show on Nickelodeon I took a liking to. With minimal effort and great voice acting, something truly amazing has been achieved with a great degree of originality. The creators have basically taken a bunch of kids' dolls and toys, including G.I. Joes, Barbies, and He-Man dolls, and transformed them into a dysfunctional crime-fighting team. The outcomes are hilarious and are pure genius. Gotta love the diver's British accent and the mayor being the villain. Even though the team keeps on getting run over by vehicles again and again, I never seem to get tired of it. I would have imagined that this show would be quite popular, but I guess that it was kinda short-lived." And our Hate It is titled, "Became Less Interesting When It Became Its Own Show." Written by Qvora 862003 on December 1st, 2005. This one says, "Yes, I do remember when Nickelodeon finally let Action League Now become its own television series. After the mass popularity it got from being on Kablam Friday nights. It was indeed a big mistake. For one thing, the show came on every Sunday afternoon at like 12 o'clock. Probably a time when no one was watching TV. Second, the show didn't have that spark it used to have. And the episodes were simply boring. The flesh was perhaps the only thing that made me want to see the show on the account that he was stupid and wore no clothes. Thunder Girl was pretty cool as well. So, to Action League, your run was short, but you'll always hold a place in my heart, somewhere in my childhood."
Oh boy. Thank you, Bobby. As always, amazing. You know what? They may say that this show lost its spark, but you, Bobby Anthem, have never lost your spark
We
ever
have been
in the eyes of
We
this
have
show.
been on the air and not getting paid for like 10 times as long as Action League Now. So I'll take that. One of these days we'll actually cobble our money together and make a Chuckamation short. That'll be fun.
I can't
fun.
wait. I've got so many action figures
Hell
out in
yeah,
the
dude.
garage.
I
I'm
just want.
ready to make this
I've
happen.
been sent everything I ever owned as a kid except my G.I. Joe action figures and vehicles, and that's all I want because those are the only ones that could actually like function in a Chuckamation thing for me. I think that's all I want. And if you guys haven't,
That's all
go
I
to
want.
Netflix right now. Check out The Toys That Made Us. It's a 4-part documentary series about toys. I think they had Star Wars, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Master of
Barbie.
the Universe, and Barbie. And it's going to be an 8-part series. I don't know when the next 4 episodes are coming, but it's a lot of fun and it's super cool for nostalgia. So go check that out too. Not a sponsor,
Absolutely.
just for fun. Action League Now, bud. Do you recommend it? And if not, does it get the dip, meaning it's erased from all existence for all time?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend this. This was fun. It was silly. I will give the caveat with the recommendation of I would not go beyond watching like 1 or 2 episodes. This show can get really daunting. It can be really, I want to say, exasperating to watch
It can.
sometimes.
It's a lot.
And so
It's a lot to take.
yeah, it's a lot to take in. So if you have specific ones that you're just like, oh yeah, I remember that, go back and watch that one. Treat yourself to that episode. There's no real reason to go back and watch, I want to say, everything that they ever made, but just know that there's, some subtle differences between, as Dave has mentioned, the Kablam show itself and this show proper. It still tries to capture a lot of that same magic and that same fun. I enjoy that. The visual gags on this are just so crazy that the amount of time that they put into this is just bonkers. I would love to see something sort of a little bit similar to this, but maybe with some more substance. And I'll say this, I feel like this show would have done really well as a 10-minute segment on Adult Swim as opposed to a 20-minute or a 24-minute time slot that it would have had in a half an hour block with Nickelodeon.
This probably would have fit in really good with things like Sequest 2021 or whatever it was called, and like Frisky
absolutely.
Dingo
Harvey
and Harvey
Birdman.
Birdman and all those, and
Yeah.
Squidbillies even. I think that would have fit in.
Aqua Teens.
It would have fit in really well. 10-15 minute sequence.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we'll make the next one. But as
How are you feeling
I feel
about
good
this show?
too. I'd recommend it. It's weird. When I was a kid, I really liked this show because it was so different and zany and unpredictable. Now, as an old man, I like it because I appreciate the kind of production that goes into it, and the post production, and the planning, and the hands-on nature of it. I'd really like to see a behind the scenes video of this stuff. I'd probably watch that more than the actual show itself. But yeah, so like Sean said, take this in small doses. It's a lot of fun. It's something different, especially if you've never seen it before or it's been 20 years since you watched it last. So yeah, check that one out. And that's our latest New Year's Nicktoon. We still got more in the tank though. Even if our pun tanks run dry, our Nicktoons tank is super full and still going. If you want to know what's coming up next week, sorry to tell you, but you got to be a Patreon subscriber where we have newsletters and super cool updates that we send out to let you know upcoming episodes. You might think you're super smart, and if you follow along in the timeline of when Nicktoons were released, that you might know what's coming up next. But even we don't necessarily know because we've done screwed our entire schedule up. So who knows what's coming next week? It could be anything. But in the meantime, buddy, what's going on with you out in the real world?
Guys, as always, I do live improv comedy in Washington, D.C. with a group that is called Nox. That's Nox exclamation point. We perform with Washington Improv Theater, and you can find tickets and times, all the information that you need to know, witdc.org. And as always, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis.
Fantastic.
Dave, what are you up
but
to?
You can find me on Twitter at DrClawMD. You can also find me on Collider.com, Nerdist.com, and DaveTrumbore.com. If you want to find out more about this little show right here, head on over to our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also follow along on Twitter at MorningToons. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Instagram page. Keep that conversation going on Facebook. And listen to our free audio podcast each and every week through YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. As always, you can reach out to us through email. Drop us a line, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. That's going to do it for Action League now. I'm going to go chuck stuff around for a little bit just for fun, see what happens. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
Let's
sounds
check
good.
it out.
Also, guys, we have a little webcomic
Oh, how
that's
about
out. It's called Death Junior.
Bye-bye.
We'd appreciate it. We'd appreciate it if you go over and give it a little look. Say hello. Give it a retweet. Give it a like.
Yeah.
We want you to enjoy it. We've had an opportunity, obviously, to watch so many cartoons. It's been a passion of ours to be able to create our own content. We're finally in the position where we're able to do it. Appreciate everything that you guys have, support that you guys have shown us so far with the podcast. So we hope you enjoy this. Thank you.
Sean's getting emotional. I'm going to say go enjoy a little death. Check it out. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.